Look, I've just recently watched this as well, as everyone will do, because it's just come out, but the Very Royal Scandal.
Right, yes.
Which, again, now this is a part to get your teeth into, and it's a three-part thing. Obviously, there's been a couple of dramas about this. Is the Prince Andrew interview. I have someone who's very upset that they didn't get the part of Prince Andrew. Do you want to meet them?
Yes, please. Oh my God.
I was going to put the microphone. It should have been me. It should have been. Hello, I need Prince Andrew. It should have.
It's uncanny.
Yeah. Do you think the show would have been better with?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, I wish I could have done the interview with him sitting on my lap. Imagine if actual Prince Andrew had done that.
Well, there was a story that Prince Andrew actually had. I tried to write a spitting image thing about this because there was a story that, and this is part of the reason I think I have this actually. There was a story that Prince Andrew, one of his seduction techniques. was. That he had a puppet of himself that he would sort of go up and touch women with and stuff. That was one of his.
Like a sort of Rod Hull and Emu.
Yeah. It's like Rod Hull and Little Rod Hull, which would be an even more worrying thing. Wow. I cannot tell a lie. He can't sweat. I've got this for you. This is a present for you. As a recognition of you being the best Prince Andrew out of the two, it's a no sweat sweatband.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. It was a shooting weekend. It was a straightforward shooting weekend. That's my absolute favourite thing that anyone said in any interview ever. I used to watch that over and over and over and over on repeat.
There's a lot of good stuff in there, and what's fascinating about the whole interview, I think, is that Prince Andrew finishes, and then Prince Andrew says, "Oh, I didn't say any of this stuff," and then all the stuff that's terrible he adds in.
I think everyone, until I read the script, I had no idea, and I don't think people did. No. But yeah, so they did, for anyone who hasn't watched it, they did the interview, and Emily Maitlis was only given an hour to do this interview, and they do it straight through, and then at the end of it, he says, "Oh, we didn't talk about my alibis," and they were like, "What?" And so they had to re-film a bit where he said all the things that everyone thinks were the really stupid things that he said. So Pizza Express and the no sweating and all that. This was all the stuff that he asked to put in at the end. And they nearly didn't do it because they had to cut it in and drop those bits in.
Yeah.
So that the Newsnight people were really worried that it would look like they had manipulated the interview. And so they nearly didn't put it in, and Emily was like, "No, that you've got to put that stuff in."
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that everyone remembers. I mean, it's remarkable. And he thought it went really well.
It is. Yeah. I think there should be a bit. There's a guy who says to Emily Maitlis, "We can't put this in. This is no good, and it doesn't match up." And Emily says, "It's got to go in." There's no scene where she goes back in the office and go, "Told you, you fuck nuts." He just comes back and goes, yeah. He doesn't even apologise or anything, that guy, and that's my problem with that. That's my only problem with the whole thing.
That's why she's got the News Agents podcast.
Yes, it is.
And you've got Brother.
That's right. It's I'm presuming you don't have a lot of affection for Prince Andrew, but it's it's a nicely balanced. I mean, it's quite fair to him. I think the piece.
I was a bit worried that. So having done it and filmed it and everything, I was a bit worried because people started saying, like, you sort of you maybe meet up with the director when you do some ADR, like sound stuff later, and then you maybe meet up with the producers when you do a screening and that kind of thing. And people were starting to say, people kind of quite like him in your performance. I was like, no, I don't want to be the person who made everyone like Prince Andrew. But the problem is, once I agreed to do something, at the moment where I say yes to it, that's the moment where I have to decide whether I think, the whole piece is being done responsibly, or whether I agree with what's sort of being said about these characters and all that kind of stuff. Because then once I go into it, then it's just all about playing this character, and I have to forget what my opinions are about that person.
Of course.
And I just have to kind of try and make the person as real as possible. So inevitably, you know, my antennae is always looking for where's a character's vulnerabilities, and you want to sort of expose that and make sure an audience gets to see the contradictions in them and the vulnerabilities and stuff like that. Because otherwise it's just polemic and it's sort of boring. But the problem is when you're playing a character who you do have quite strong feelings about, and then you look at what you've done, you think, well, I've kind of made them quite like... There's one scene in it where, and it's during COVID, and it's when he's trying to like do good PR for himself, to, you know, and his PR people come up with this idea for him and Sarah Ferguson. Did you know that they continue to live together as man and wife with their kids? I didn't know that. Isn't that mad?
Well, he was sort of forced into a divorce, wasn't he?
Yeah,
So
well, that's the story.
Yeah.
Is that apparently, allegedly, Prince Philip, who had been having allegedly affairs all his life, didn't like it when Sarah Ferguson had an affair, and it got out into the papers, and he felt she was he just didn't like her. He didn't like personality-wise, and he said, allegedly, you have to divorce her. And I did feel kind of sorry, because you remember there was an American actress called Koo Stark that he had a big affair, a relationship with, and he was told that he couldn't be with her either, and so it is quite sad, that aspect of it I found quite sad. I mean, I was looking for things to sort of sympathise with him for in order to play him, but yeah, that scene where his PR people have gone, right, we're going to have you and Sarah Ferguson putting various sort of food things into bags to give to poor people or something like that. and we're going to, we'll have photographers there, and he clearly fucking hates doing it. But I realised as we were playing the scene that the more you see someone hating what they're doing and being kind of sarky about it, the more you just like them. You really want them. And I came away going, I think that's the scene that's going to fuck this whole thing up. But I think people are going to just find him funny and like him in that. And so they did have to edit it a little bit to sort of bring that down a bit.
I think it's enough that you think I don't like him, but I also think it makes you think that he thinks he's innocent.
Yes,
that's what
well, that was the weird thing. I've never done a drama before, or a character before, really, where the main thing about that character in the piece that you're doing, the main thing about the story, you don't know.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't say just what we thought he had done or not done, because the lawyers, the legal battles would be huge. So there's a sort of mystery at the heart of the piece, which I think is very cleverly handled by the writer and everything. But for me, playing the character, I had to know what my character had done or not done. I mean, I'm not going to tell anyone but I made a decision. I had to come up with some sort of weird mental thing that I could do in order to play the scenes specifically. Yeah. But yeah, I wanted to play around with the idea that, if anything, he believes that he hasn't done anything wrong.
Yeah. Because he lives this ridiculous life.
It's about privilege, really, isn't it? And entitlement.
I mean, all these things about the royal family do make you feel it's sort of cruel to have a royal family. For the crown, everything. I think you just look at it and go, this life they lead is just, it's horrible. It's like a morality tale. These are the people who've got everything and then just have no love and have no...
Well, and him in particular, in a way, because the thing that really struck me was that he's a man who seems to present as someone who has had so much taken away from him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't just mean now, since all this happened, but he was the really fit one in the royal family. He was very handsome when he was younger, and he'd gone off to the Falklands War and all that stuff, and he was always in the papers as being most eligible bachelor, and he was off doing going out with all these women and stuff, and then as the spare, as they're known, he just got further and further away from the power, and became less and less relevant, and then started to lose his looks, and people weren't interested in him anymore, and then he got fat.
Yeah.
And
and then they said, Michael Sheen can play him now.
Yeah, exactly. Thank God. One review said, Sheen, who appears to be wearing a fat suit for that. This is me. How fucking dare you?
Did you have to do any retakes because you started sweating during any of the scenes? Is my main question.
I did a lot of sweat. I tell you what I found really hard was in the interview, he's got his legs crossed, much like your good self, For the entire interview, those days are over. For
No,
me.
they can't.
Can't do that.
How's your penis holding up though in mid? I mean, you're not quite as old as me.
Oh, I'm so glad we've got onto that.
I used to
subject.
be able to have sex like
Yeah.
8 times in a day.
Really?
Yeah, with the same person usually. And now, like once every 2 days if I'm lucky, you know. I'm not.
Once every 2 days?
I mean, I might be able to even manage it.
Get out.
I don't do it once every 2 days, but that takes a couple of days
Yeah.
to get back to.
I mean, I've gone into semi-retirement.
Yeah, I mean,
My semis have gone into retirement. I have a tired semi if I'm lucky. I do find now that so in order to play Prince Andrew and another part that I played last year in the theatre, I did put a bit of weight on, or at least I didn't worry too much about taking the weight off. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So I got to a point where I thought, right, I need to start exercising again. So I've started going back to the gym and stuff, and I've got to the point now where when I'm in the changing room, I'm getting changed, and I now congregate down where all the old men because I really don't want to be around the younger men anymore.
yeah,
And that's a sad day.
yeah.
I mean, anyone who's around their 50s knows what I'm talking about. That's not good. It's like when as an actor in a theatre company, I still sort of think I'm the youngest member of the company because you go through that, and then you get to the point where you realise that the younger actresses then, and even the younger actors, are talking to you sort of out of pity rather than interest.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a hard adjustment.
It is.
It really is.
But it's difficult. You don't notice the years passing, and then suddenly you go, oh, you know.
And then you have a hairy cock.
Hairy cock.
I don't understand. You have your penis is covered in hair.
I wouldn't say covered, but there's a significant amount. There's hair on the shaft of the penis.
When you said that, the image that came to me is it sort of sitting there like a Ramon between gigs or something. It's like,
The end doesn't have any hair. There's no hair on the
the
belly.
end is cold. It's too cold. Nothing will grow there. Clearly, it's like the fucking tundra.
Not nice. Not nice having a cold penis.
No.
It's like you're just dying slowly.
Is that because?
It's
Because the blood is not getting to the
There's no
extremities
blood
anymore.
going into there. The blood goes by, thinks, any point? Nah, there's no point in going in there.
Let's save it for the fucking heart. Come on. What's going to go first? Let's let the penis can go. The heart has to keep going, isn't it? So shove the blood up there. God.
I'm going to have to give you a writing credit on my next show, Michael, so it's going to have to use some of this.